Restic is a backup program that you can use to back up to local storage or to the cloud. It supports versioning in the form of snapshots, de-duplication, and it's quite light, very small footprint, and it's fast. We looked at Restic for Windows previously. In this video, we'll be looking at Restic for Linux. Let's go ahead and install Restic. Let's go ahead and set up our backup. I have a USB device, a Samsung USB device, and I'm going to store my backups here. In Restic, backups are called repositories. So let's go ahead and create our backup repository. Let's clear the screen, type Restic, init -r for repository, and we'll copy our path. I'll be backing up to my USB device. And we need to enter a password. Whenever you need to access your backup, you need to supply the password. A repository has been created on our USB device here with all of its files, the Restic files. This warning tells you not to lose your password, because if you do, you will not be able to recover your data. Now we're ready to back up some data. In my home folder, I like to back up my documents, which has a simple text document full of Ipsum in it. So let's back that folder up. We'll type Restic -r followed by our repository location. And we're going to use the verbose flag. This flag will give us more information about what's happening when we run this command. And we'll use the backup command and then tell Restic what we want to back up. So I'll back up in my home folder, documents, and enter. Enter our password. And the backup is complete. We get information about the backup, such as the files, what's been new, what's changed, and what's been unmodified. It also gives us the size of our repository. We've added 4 kilobytes, and it gives us the time. Another important thing it gives us is the snapshot ID or version ID. This string here will be used to access this snapshot. So if we wanted to restore some data from this snapshot, we will refer to this string. Before we look at snapshots in more detail, let's back up something else. I want to now back up this video file. Here are my videos. So we'll go back to our command, and now we'll just back up videos. And we see it's complete. Let's go ahead and look at our snapshots. If we do Restic -r in our repository, and we run the snapshots command, it gives us a list of all of our snapshots. So we just made 2 backups, so we should have 2 snapshots. This is our first backup. It gives us the time, the host, and the paths that were backed up. So we have our documents and our videos here. If we want to look and see inside our snapshot, we could do ls and refer to that snapshot ID. So we'll just copy that ID. We'll do ls, and it shows us all the contents from that backup. This was our first backup, which only backed up the documents, so we have our example text document here. Likewise, if we just wanted to see what we backed up in our latest backup, we could just type ls latest, and it will give us a list of everything that we backed up in our latest backup. So we backed up our videos last time, and it prints our video files. If we wanted to see the changes that were made between 2 snapshots, we could use the diff command. We could type diff followed by IDs that we want to compare, the snapshots. And we can see the comparisons between the first and second snapshot. as well as the size added and removed. And here we can see the files listed. Let's go ahead and back up again. We'll back up videos again. Now, there's no purpose for doing this since nothing has changed. And if we do the snapshots command again, we will see that we now have 3 snapshots. Of course, nothing changed in the last snapshot, so there's no reason to have it. You can remove snapshots using the forget command. And we can supply the snapshot ID, but since I know this was our last snapshot, I'll just type latest. Anywhere where you can put the snapshot ID, you can just type latest if you want to refer to the last snapshot. And that snapshot has been removed. I'm going to now add a file here in my videos. This MKV file. And let's run our snapshots again. We should now have 2 snapshots because we deleted the last one. And run a backup on our videos again to add the new video to our backup. And we see it's been added. And our total size here is close to 40 megs. We look at our backup folder. Let me create a new tab here and go to my Samsung device. We look at the size of this folder. It has a size of 41 megabytes. If we remove that last snapshot, we use the forget command on latest, and we remove that snapshot, you'd think that we would have removed that video file that we just added. Let me go ahead and refresh and look at the size of our backup. It still has a size of 41 megs. So even though we deleted the snapshot, the data is still present. To free up the space in our repository or our backup, we need to use the prune command. Let's go ahead and clear the screen here. And we're going to now use the prune command. So we'll just type restic R, restic -R, followed by our repository and type prune. And we can see it's cleaning up our backup. And if we look at the size of our backup now, we see it's shrunk back down to 16 megs. And if we look at our snapshots again, we have our 2 snapshots. Let's go ahead and back up our videos one more time, and this time I'd like to show you how to tag your snapshots. This is useful for keeping track of your snapshots. So after our backup command, let's go ahead and add using the tag flag. And my first tag I'll just call media, and my second tag I'll just call it, I don't know, and hit enter. And our video is being added. And if we run our snapshots again, we can see in our latest snapshot, we added the tag media, I don't know. Obviously, you should be more descriptive of these tags. I could have put something like video 2 or something, but you get the idea. This is a way where you can be descriptive about your snapshots. So in case you need to find specific files or folders. Let's look at restoring some data. Let's look at our snapshots again. We have our 3 snapshots. I want to restore from our last snapshot. To restore, we'll use the restore command, followed by the snapshot ID. We could copy this, but since I know I want to restore from my latest snapshot, I'll just type latest. And then we need to use the target flag and tell Rustic where we want to restore our data. In this case, I'm going to place the restored data in my home folder on the desktop in a folder called restore. We're saying Rustic restore from our latest snapshot, and we want to place the data in a folder on our desktop called restored. And if we look at our desktop, we now have a folder called restored, and in that folder it's got a complete path to our files, and we have both of our videos. Let's go ahead and delete this. And let's do that again, this restore again, but we're going to restore from our first snapshot. So we'll go back and simply replace latest with the new snapshot ID. And we'll see this time we only have our documents folder with the example text. You notice how in the last backup it didn't have this documents folder. That's because when we ran that backup, we explicitly chose to back up the videos folder. Let's go ahead and tell Rustic to back up both our documents and videos folder into one snapshot. I've gone ahead and we've got the backup command going again. This time I've provided two locations for Restic to back up. We're backing up both our videos and our documents. And we see in our latest snapshot, we now have documents and videos. So now let's go ahead and restore that data. And now, in our home folder, we have our documents and our videos. There's a much more efficient way to do this by creating a file with a list of paths to include in our backup. I'm going to show you how to do that in a few. But now I'd like to show you how to restore just a specific file from a specific snapshot. I'm going to go ahead and remove this restored data here. Let's clear this. I'm going to look at my snapshots. And do an ls on the latest snapshot. And I want to restore from our documents folder this text file. So to do that, we'll do restore followed by latest, our target. And this time we're going to specify that we only want to include this path from our snapshot, our documents example. And this time in our restored data folder, we just have documents example.txt. Let's look at excluding and including files. I have some pictures in my pictures folder along with this text document. I want to back up my pictures folder, but I don't want this text file in my snapshot. So let's go about doing that. We'll go ahead and run a backup of our pictures. And we're going to use the exclude flag to exclude pictures, wallpapers, site.txt. And so this will tell Rustic not to include this text file in our backup. We do an ls on latest. We can see all of our pictures have been backed up except that text file. Alright, so I've completely removed all of my snapshots and cleaned up my repository with the prune command. I've created two new files in my home folder called exclude.txt and include.txt. And in both of these files, in my include.txt, I have a list of paths that I want Rustic to back up. So I wanted to back up my documents, videos, and pictures. Except in my exclude file, I don't want it to back up the wallpaper site.txt file. So it's going to back up everything in our pictures except this text file. With these two files created, we can more efficiently back up our data. So now all we need to do is back up using the files from flag. We can point Restic to the location of our include file. It's going to be stored in my home folder, include.txt. And for the exclude, we'll just say exclude file and point Restic to the location of that file. And it's backing up all of our data. If we do snapshots, we can see in our latest snapshot, it's backed up our documents, pictures, and videos. We do an ls, latest, we'll notice that it's got our videos and pictures and documents, but it does not have that text file that's in our pictures folder. With this method, you can back up to various different locations from your local computer or network, as well as filter the folders and files that you don't want included in your backup. Let's go ahead and run that backup again, except this time I'm just going to remove this line here from our exclude file and run our backup. We can just omit the entire exclude file and do an ls. And we see we have that text document from our pictures file now included in our backup. The last thing I'd like to show you is how to mount your repository on your Linux file system. This allows you to access the data in your backup directly. Let's go to my desktop and I'll make a folder called mounted, and we'll bring up our command mount on our desktop, mounted. And now if we go into this folder, we see we have our repository data and our snapshots. We go into our snapshots, we can see all of our backed up data. And if we go to latest, we can view all of our files directly. Our example.txt, all of our pictures, all of our videos, and you could copy them, look at the different versions of them. So this is a very nice way to directly access all of your snapshots on Linux. And that's a look at Restic for Linux. In the next video, I'll show you how to make automated backups, and I'll show you how to configure retention policies.